Hi, I'm JB Jones.
And I'm Bella Naiman.
And we're the co-founders of NYC Jewelry Week. We are excited to welcome you to our 6th year New York City Jewelry Week 2023.
Welcome to our virtual talks program. On our YouTube channel, you'll get to enjoy incredible content that we've put together for you with the theme of iconography, looking at the past, present, and future of jewelry.
You can see the full schedule on our website at nycjewelryweek.com, and we invite you to explore all the programs there. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Mazzi Odu and it gives me great pleasure to be part of this year's NYC Jewelry Week digital programming. Today we will be speaking to Iver and Jhaleh Rosenkrantz, partners in life as well as in business and the founders of Rosenkrantz Africa. Rosenkrantz Africa is a high and fine jewelry house that was founded in 2016 and continues to break barriers in what is perceived a modern African maison should be and what it should produce. So I will leave it there with my introduction. I'd love to say hello, Iver, hello, Jhaleh. It's so lovely for you to join us. Thank you.
Hi, Mazzi. Thank you so much for always having us in your life and following our journey, which is not a boring one.
No, it definitely has not, and that's why it's so exciting because this year's theme is icons and iconography for NYC Jewelry Week. So when one thinks of iconic high and fine jewelry houses based in Africa, your name is definitely in the mix. So it just felt really appropriate, to have you guys and also to just speak to a wider audience who might not necessarily imagine that jewelry of that kind is being produced in Africa, widening also people's perspectives of what is African jewelry and what are the possibilities across the ecosystem. So I'm just going to dive straight in and ask a really obvious question, which is what made you and brought about the inception of Rosenkrantz Africa? What made you decide to go into the jewelry industry?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mazzi. We are very honored to be part of this. And, Jhaleh and I started Rosenkrantz from scratch in 2016. Having said that, before that, I was finding gemstones in the bush, and my wife was a photographer and designer. So we kind of joined forces. I was, as I said, I used to mine gemstones and work with artisanal miners before this. And for me, the fascination has always been the stories behind the stones and following the stones from the source to all the way to the end. And fortunately, my wife has a lot better creative eyes than I do. I just love the bush and the opportunities that the stones can provide for people living in rural communities. It's fascinating that in today's world, we can still find new gemstone deposits in places that people had no idea they existed. And that is really my drive, and I love Africa. I've been in Africa for almost 20 years, and my wife is born there.
Yeah, so I'm Tanzanian with Iranian roots, basically. And my family has been in Tanzania for 4 generations now, so I'm very much Tanzanian more than anything else. And I mean, I've always had a fascination with gemstones and jewelry in specific. I feel like I found there to be a bit of a gap in the market for African brands and jewelry brands in particular. I mean, I saw a lot of other brands come in and they would use stones from within the region, and no one locally was necessarily putting their own input in there. So for me, it was more, becoming an African brand in all its senses.
And I think to add to this, there's so much beauty and romance and fun and creativity that is not really being told when Africa is mentioned.
Yeah.
And that is what we're also hoping to participate in that, and to add to that, to show all the beauty and all the things that we love, which is what drives us.
Yes. Sadly, the world doesn't perceive Africa as what it is, and that's like a shame, really. So it's more about amplifying that voice.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there's a real sort of disconnect, especially for those who either don't live on the continent or maybe have had limited in real life interaction, shall we say, with the continent. So if you're getting all your information from certain news media, you might have a perception of both what is African, even who is African. I mean, you went into this very lengthy exposition of being Tanzanian, but with Iranian roots. But for anyone who has lived in Eastern Africa, they will know that Eastern Africa is an ethnically multicultural space.
Absolutely.
There are people of all hues who will call themselves Kenyan or Tanzanian, and yet, obviously that might not necessarily translate to global audiences. So I think it's a really important point that you make. And Ivor, you sort of made a point of you having lived in Africa for now several decades, but obviously I know that you're of Danish origin, and it's sort of seen within, the brand's mark. So if you can share a little bit about that with us in a moment. But I also think it ties into why the two of you chose very much to create a brand that has a strong focus in fine and high jewelry. Because obviously when people think of fine and high jewelry, their heads immediately go to Place Vendôme, immediately go to, the usual suspect brands. I'm not going to publicize them here because we're talking about Rosenkrantz Africa, but their heads will go to that. And I think it's really interesting how you have saved both your own family personal narrative into this wider agenda of Africa being the home of a high jewelry maison. So if you can expand upon, the mark, your own heritage, how that sort of ties in, and why Jhaleh and you decided to, sit very squarely in the fine and high space.
Okay, sorry.
In this industry, especially in this part of the world, it's a highly conservative and male-dominated industry, and I wasn't born into this industry. I had to learn everything the hard way, and from my side, I really like the fact that here's an opportunity to take another look at this, how it's done, tell another story. East Africa is very much about exporting raw materials and cheap products with no label, no brand, no story. And I think what is better than high jewelry to really tell a story? That's when people have time to sit down and listen. And, creating it here, we live in Africa, we're part of the dynamic of this industry, and do whatever we can to change people's lives through what we do and the perspective on Africa.
Yes, for sure. And I also feel like us going into high jewelry and finer jewelry happened very organically, if I dare say. I mean, it was, we were commissioned to do a very large Tanzanite necklace, and that kind of propelled us into that space. So after that, I mean, then obviously it got more traction and therefore more interest in that. So it happened very organically.
Yes,
we didn't necessarily position ourselves there. It just happened.
Yeah, but I mean, you're being very coy, but you can tell us a little about the crest, because I think, as you rightly said, Ivor, stories and storytelling are really important. And obviously, you guys, on a personal level, are a love story. They're also a business story. And I just love the fact of you bringing, some of your family heritage also into the mix. I think that's something that would be really exciting for people to hear about.
we come from a very, or I come from a very old family, in a Danish noble family, which is I mean, obviously there's a fantastic history behind us and behind our brand. We chose to use our family crest as the logo for the brand.
We always joke that it was because we couldn't afford a graphic designer.
Which is partly true when we started.
But I like
We couldn't afford a graphic designer, so we just opted for the obvious choice.
it's like, you know what, let's just sort of walking around the family grounds, you think, hang on a minute, that crest and the masonry, that could work. That could just plonk that on top.
You know, it's one of those.
I think it's a really beautiful story, and it also speaks to migration flows to Africa. Lots of people, in the same way people often think about the outward migration flows, there have been lots of inward migration flows to the continent. And I think that's, again, speaking to what you were saying of having, you know, things that are made in Kenya or made in Tanzania, but they've got no label necessarily positing them to that part of the world. Having a brand mark that very clearly sort of weaves together the threads of both your present reality and your past ancestry and also your intentions is, you know, super, super exciting. And it's sort of, you know, Jhaleh, you've already mentioned this amazing commission you got for the Tanzanite suite. And I don't know whether that appears from Tanzanite pieces, but I want to take you guys a little step back to something else. I mean, obviously high and fine jewelry and celebrating gemstones from the region is something that you guys have been very much known for. You know, you use a lot of things like tanzanites, you obviously use aquamarines, we'll speak about that later, and, you know, sapphirites. But I also want to talk to a little bit about your breakout collection, because you also, within your storytelling, are brilliant at saying the actual environment, the environment in and around Eastern Africa and Kenya specifically. And so I just wanted a little, you know, if you could tell, you know, the viewers a bit about the Karura collection, what that is, what that's referencing, because that was your big breakout collection that sort of put you guys on the map. And that's sort of when I first, you know, got engaged with your brand at the time of that launching. And then obviously pieces like the Andromeda convertible earrings, which are, you know, just exquisite example of Tanzanite use and diamonds. So I will, you know, if you can talk us through them, either one of you, that was just beautiful to hear.
Thank you. So the Karura collection was actually a very interesting story about how it came about. It was our first collection that we ever made. And I think Iver knows how to tell that story a little bit better than I do.
Well, you know, working with miners all over East Africa and Southern Africa, for us, it's the driver has always been the materials. When we get a raw stone and we sit and we get fascinated and carried away, and there's so many beautiful stones that are not necessarily facetable quality, but they're just beautiful in their own rights. And for us, the inclusions in stones like these are they're more than just impurities. They're actually the DNA of the stone. They tell a story. They tell a story about how the stone was formed, the place it comes from, and many of these inclusions are actually unique to the region or the country or the area. So this is we take stones that we love and we try to create something unusual with them. And the result here is the Karura collection. We use what we see here is tourmalines and emeralds. And we also use aquamarine from our mine in Zimbabwe. So it's really a question of just making really fun, colorful, everyday pieces that you can cherish and wear for every occasion.
Yeah, I think what you said, I mean, because obviously, to those listening, can you tell people what Karura is? Obviously, I know, but I think it sort of adds an element to the story, another layer of looking to your environment as inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. So Karura is a very large forest in the middle of Nairobi. It's a protected area, approximately 3,000 hectares.
1,000 hectares.
1,000 hectares,
Yeah.
sorry. My
Yeah,
math is
and
not
a lot of us who live in Nairobi, we use it as a place to go and connect with nature, especially during COVID. A lot of people rediscovered Karura Forest. It's a place where you see a lot of wildlife in terms of monkeys and antelopes. There's waterfalls. There's different kinds of trees and birds, and it's just a really beautiful place that we love.
Yeah.
No, I think the inclusion speaks to that, because the urban environment and the natural environment, one sort of thinks about urban environments as a place of pollution and, sort of, want a better word, toxifying. And then you've got this piece that almost looks like a talisman on the flag, and the inclusion to speak to those imperfections of, city living and yet going into nature to reconnect. So, I mean, I'm imagining those might have been some of the thoughts you were thinking, because I know, Jhaleh, you're the creative director. So when you were thinking about the form, with those sorts of ideas spinning in your head of how to distill what Karura means.
Absolutely. And, the other thing is that given that we are also somewhat of a Danish brand because of the name and the crest, it's also that balance between the raw African beauty mixed with those clean lines of Danish design.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the primary inspiration of this. It being called Karura was essentially because that was about when we moved to Nairobi as well. So that was our ground. Yeah.
That's really, really beautiful. I mean, like I said, and I also love the fact that you have fused sort of clean Scandinavian lines with also the location, and also utilizing, gemstones that, as you said, Iver, that you were literally before very much on the mining side of things. And so I think now that we've sort of seen your breakout collection, I'm sure people watching will be itching to see some of the high jewelry pieces, specifically the ones from your homeland. So I want to talk to you, and also this latest one, which of course is Baroness. So I mean, Jhaleh, this is definitely a modern masterpiece, and it would just be really lovely to hear what inspired the design process. What were you thinking of? What were you looking at? What were you hoping to sort of distill? And how did your own sort of personal narrative mixed in with obviously different design schools globally create this magnificent suite?
Okay, so both the emerald suites that we did create, because there are two within the same design category, are both inspired by Islamic architecture. Islamic architecture has been very important throughout East Africa as well.
Yes.
You have the whole coastal area of East Africa. You have Zanzibar, Lamu in Kenya. All around there, you can see a strong footprint of that architecture style. So both pieces were inspired by that. I think I wanted to link it back to Islamic architecture and kind of just play with that narrative and, my own cultural background. I mean, I think it just ties in so well together. So it was more about playing that. The Baroness has motifs, the lotus motifs around it, which are very apparent in a lot of Islamic architecture as well. And then I did use baguettes around the necklace to make it quite subtle. So it's relatively wearable despite its grand scale.
I was going to say casual Sundays, huh? Just me, just very casually.
Wear it with a white shirt and you're good.
Exactly, just like hanging with friends.
Yeah.
You should definitely.
You should definitely wear it with a white shirt. It actually looks really good. No, but yeah. So it's primarily inspired by Islamic architecture, which did make its way throughout the coast of East Africa.
Yes, and I think it's really exquisite. And what drew you to emeralds in particular? Was that again you sort of hinting, because obviously they appear throughout Near Eastern Asian gemstones as well. So I was just wondering if that also kind of predicated your choice of going, I definitely want an emerald in this situation?
So when I mean, we reached a level where we work with a lot of super rare stones, and finding stones like this can take someone a lifetime. So we work with a network of miners and mine owners all over the world. And these particular stones came from our friend's mine in Colombia. His family has been mining emeralds since the 60s. So we had to look even outside Africa for some of the pieces we do, because it's also, many of them are designed specifically for clients that have a specific request. And that was kind of the case with this suite.
Yes, and can you tell us, I mean, for listeners, I mean, how that sort of, you know, very rarefied world of high jewelry works? Is it a question of, you know, people sort of sliding into your DMs and saying, I want something spectacular for my spouse, partner, milestone birthday, and the process from your side, Jhaleh, does the design process, how many sketches, consultations? Because obviously this is kind of the Rolls Royce of the jewelry world, this world of high jewelry. So I think for those who aren't necessarily cognizant of it, it would be really nice to hear a little bit more about that.
Of course. So in terms of clients, I mean, respectively reaching out, it has happened in a numerous amount of ways, in very unexpected ways as well, from Instagram DMs to someone seeing us. Well, I mean, it's really someone sliding into your DMs and asking for something. And with technology nowadays, I mean, there's a lot of communication via WhatsApp as well. In terms of design process, it is a lot of me speaking to the clients and understanding what they're looking for, and then interpreting that.
Yes, and that must be quite intimate, because a bit like a couturier for clothing.
Absolutely.
And then obviously from your side, Iver, because you're sort of mind facing, is it then a question of you going into your network, your global network of miners, and saying, okay, we need a gobstopper of an emerald, and seeing what people are doing, or is it normally you get the gemstones first before you start creating?
Well, I think with some of these super gems that we have been fortunate enough to work with, the past couple of years have shown us that it's actually a really, really good investment. And a lot of our clients are looking for this type of gemstones in order to diversify their portfolio of investments. So sometimes it can really be a case of us looking for a particular stone for years before we find the right one. Because, for example, with spinels that we work a lot with, I mean, these stones are so difficult to find. And we actually have standing orders for rare gems that we are constantly on the lookout for. We're always keeping in touch with our friends who are mining and seeing what comes out. So sometimes it's really a question of finding that incredible gem and then creating something around it.
Perfect. And can you see, because you had the slide of the other suite, the second necklace, and I think this is a really interesting one because of the convertibility of the fact that you can either wear it with a pendant or without, and that sort of idea of, you know, if you are going to invest in a serious piece, as you rightly said, Iver, it's a wonderful way of diversifying your portfolio, but then for the lucky person who gets to wear this, there's also a number of ways one can wear the pendant. Isn't that right, Jhaleh? I remember you explaining that to me.
Yes. So the whole piece is pretty much completely detachable. So you can wear it with just a choker, add a part of the pendant, or add the whole pendant to the piece. And there's also a possibility of turning the pendant into a brooch. So yeah.
So all of a sudden, the costs per wear start to go down. You can start saying, well, actually, I'm wearing like 4 times 40 ways.
It's complete girl math.
Yes, you know, we do sort of the wear jewelry math. Jewelry math is very different to the math they teach at school, where you're just thinking, okay, how many ways can I wear this piece? But it's absolutely spectacular. And again, one can see, I hope that viewers can see the the dome motif at the top of at the top of that emerald, and it's just really, really extraordinary, and it brings me very neatly to the mining aspect, which you've already touched upon about your network. But let's now talk a little bit about your own mine that you founded, that's very close to your heart, and you've then, of course, created some spectacular pieces from Zimbaqua. So I just want, for those, I know a little bit about it. It's a women-only mine. So I want you then to literally expand on that. Some people be like, no way. And why you chose it to be a women-only mine, and also a little bit about the aquamarines and how you both utilize them, and how this mine is really in many ways a positive disruption within the mining industry.
Of course.
Well, Zimbaqua was founded in 2019, and prior to that, my friend and I, we traveled around this region in Zimbabwe looking at stone deposits, and we found out that there was great potential for aquamarine in this particular area. And we started buying from artisanal miners. We spent about a year in this area, where we could see that this is the area has a bit of a sad history, because it used to be a very rich farming area where everyone had a job and were making money. And over the last 20 years, it's really gone down. And there's no opportunities. There's a lot of, I would say, sad situation with alcohol abuse, and there's no opportunities for women there, very few. And that's why, after spending a year getting to understand the dynamics, we realized that first of all, there was potential to mine aquamarine, and then based on what we had experienced, we were asking each other, how do we make a difference for this community? What's the best way? And our first thought was we wanted to do something for kids. How do we help the kids? And we found out that the women are actually the ones that invest in the home in this particular area. And whenever they get money, they invest in education and food for the kids. So we thought best way to help this community is actually to empower the women. So we went to the chief and said, we would like to start a mine. And he was like, very good. And then we said, we would like to start a mine with only women. And he looked at us and he was a little bit confused, but he was also a very visionary man, and caught on to the idea and said, okay, I'll help you, but you will have to follow my lead on there's a bunch of different things you have to go through before you can start this mine. And with these words, he was not referring to the mining license and the pegging of the mine and all this stuff, which also took a long time. He was actually referring to all the cultural stuff we had to do. And we went through a whole process of praying to the ancestors and meeting with the elders. And eventually we got the support from the community, and we worked closely with the community.
And so when you say the cultural stuff, and then what people's perceptions of a women-only mine?
I mean, this mine is 100% empowered by women. We only have female employees.
What have you found as the development dividend, the benefit of having this laser focus on a women-empowered mine?
Okay.
Well, I mean, the concept with the Zimbaqua is to mine responsibly and offer traceable, 100% traceable gemstones to the industry, mined by women. And of course, we should be competitive on prices, which was the concept from the beginning. And then we are offering our stones to people in the jewelry industry. We have a lot of wonderful clients who have supported us from the beginning and who appreciate the story. Obviously, Rosenkrantz is one. We're just a client of Zimbaqua, even though we're also part of the founders. But it's been, to me, this is the best project I've ever been involved in this part of the world. It's really been such a pleasure to work with the women. They are super committed, hardworking.
Trustworthy,
Yeah.
reliable, just
Yeah,
driven.
they really give their heart and soul to this project, and yeah, it's just wonderful. I mean, these women are super cool. They are very strong. They they have they have a great time together working. They're very nice to each other, support each other, teach each other, and they create amazing results. We've actually just signed a contract with a big British jewelry brand that we're going to supply. So so it's looking very good for Zimbaqua.
Amazing. And can we see some of the beautiful suites that Rosenkrantz Africa has made using aquamarines? Because I think this is a really important discussion. People often have in their head certain gemstones for high jewelry. And so it would be really lovely to see some of your pieces. Oh, wow. Wow. Can you talk us through this piece, please? I want you, Jhaleh, either one, because it's extraordinary.
Thank you. So this was actually a commissioned piece by a private client, and we used aquamarine from the mine, and as well as sapphires and savorites from within the region, with a combination of diamonds, of course. I mean, it was all very whimsical. It was a very fun piece to make. I mean, the color combination is just really something special. It reminds me a bit of a Maharaja style piece with all the colors. And that was really fun.
No, and tell me, were the savorites from Kenya?
Yes.
All the savorites and
Where were the savorites? Yes, because I mean, I think that's just so lovely. But
yeah. So the pink sapphires are from Mozambique, but the savorites are all from Kenya, and the diamonds. I mean, with the diamonds, it's becoming a very transparent industry. So it's relatively easy to trace them as well.
the mine in Tanzania.
Beautiful. That's
And,
an absolutely exquisite piece.
This aquamarine was just under 80 carats, and it's the biggest we have extracted at Zimbaqua.
Wow. It's amazing. And I think it's really interesting what you've done there, because like you said, that whimsical, playful, because I think, again, sometimes people think high jewelry has to be very, sort of heavy and serious. And I just love the play on colors. It looks like joy around your neck, literally. So it's really extraordinary.
Thank you.
And could we, talk a little bit about sort of men's jewelry? Because I think, again, lots of readers, many viewers will have this notion. And again, it's very much a global North notion, but signet ring, wedding band, that's kind of, I mean, if you're a younger man, maybe you'll wear more jewelry. But I think it's really interesting, the male jewelry proposition that's offered at Rosenkrantz Africa. I mean, specifically, again, talks to the environment. And obviously you have the Kilimanjaro bracelet, which literally incorporates love a lot from Mount Kilimanjaro. And then you also have the Mamba bracelet. And I just want to, have a little take on what you guys felt of what you wanted your jewelry offering for men, or I suppose it could be a gender-free offering, because a woman could equally wear the bracelet. But I just want to know what sort of inspired that.
I think with men's pieces, I would say I'm the part to sign on that. And
You're definitely,
the reason being that I find it very difficult as a man to find a piece that is that kind of lives up to what I want from a bracelet, for example. Something that's not too feminine. It's wearable. It's comfortable. It tells a story. And that's kind of been the driver of the men's collection to make pieces that I love. And sometimes my wife will design for me that I love. But that's why the
Or at least,
Kilimanjaro.
at least inspired. Very little. Very little inspiration to it.
The Kilimanjaro bracelet, which is made with lava from Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa.
The highest freestanding mountain in the world as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Mamba bracelet you mentioned, it's actually, it was carved by a friend of ours who's a fantastic wax carver. And he carved out this beautiful crocodile. We use Savorite from Voy as the eyes. And the strap is hand woven from thread. And it has more than 60 meters of thread. So if you are in the bush and you get into trouble, you always have string with you. And this is inspired by the first jewelry brand that I created in 2009, which was called Uru, where we developed this system of braiding fishing line into straps that you could wear as a bracelet. So that's where that's from. So the same with we get a lot of inspiration from our trips in around Africa and our safaris. We have, for example, we have just launched a new crocodile bangle with crocodile belly that's carved into silver. We also have a tembo bangle, which is tembo means elephant in Swahili, and it's the skin of elephant that's been carved into silver. And these are some of the pieces that I love wearing and that a lot of my friends love wearing as well.
Again, a contemporary take and a storytelling driven take on Animalia, because obviously, you know, you've got your Cartier Panther, you've got your Bulgari Serpenti, and you are sort of, you know, creating a piece that sort of references crocodiles, which obviously are in the region. And then also, I love this notion of the braided string. I mean, again, sort of speaks to that pragmatism, a piece that also, you know, it's a new take on many ways of wearing a piece, Jhaleh. I mean, you just gave us the high jewelry edition, and now Iver has given us the if you need string in the bush, you could deconstruct your bracelet.
Let's just add to jewelry math, really, Mazzi. I think we should coin that term, jewelry math.
I mean, it's just jewelry math. I've got practical. We're on safari, and we're like, oh shit, we need some string. I love that. I love that. I love the fact that the storytelling, and for those who live in Africa, you will immediately recognize with the tembo, you'll immediately recognize the texture of an elephant's hide, and will immediately see that in the piece. And I also love this idea of things that can wear and can get worn, as in where as the string wears, as the metal comes into contact with your skin, you can wear it every day, and it's not just something that you're putting in a vault and only wearing for special occasions, like if you had a dress watch. So I just love this idea of it can be on you, and then likewise the environment always being referenced, the lava rock from the Kilimanjaro. It's just the narrative arc is so clear in everything that you guys do. So, you know, I've come to my last question, and it's basically, you know, talking, I mean, to the theme, as I said, that NYC Jewelry Week has, which is icons and iconography. So icon and then iconography. When you see yourselves, obviously you're founded in 2016, so you're not quite 10 years old, but obviously this is Rosenkrantz Africa, you know, will go on beyond you and live on beyond you. When you think of yourselves as a jewelry house icon from Africa, what do you think that means to you? And speaking to the iconography, what recurring themes, what recurring stories, what recurring emotions do you hope your pieces will have for those who choose to collect them?
I think, Ivor, you can answer this relatively well. He's
I-
a storyteller. I mean, I can't beat that.
Well, it's all about the story. It's all about the journey and the adventure, and you know, I think that like Jhaleh mentioned earlier, our Danish influence is probably the subtlety of creating something that can be worn by anyone anywhere in the world, with a great story behind it and a little, you know, magical dust of Africa to it. I think that's where we're going, and I think there's so much potential for African brands. There's so much beauty, so much creativity,
Absolutely.
so many amazing people, and we hope to add to that equation and to grow beyond our borders.
No, I mean, I think you very much already are, and I know, Jhaleh, that you're a lot more sort of reticent in speaking, but I certainly think in your creative direction, one can really see that translated in the pieces. You know, Ivor's storytelling is translated beautifully in your design. So this is clearly a partnership that is, you know, both purposeful as well as symbiotic, and then all of us get the good fortune to wear the pieces. And so, you know, finally for people who are watching, I guess that the best way, if they're in New York or in America, or which I think the majority of our viewers, how do they connect with your brand? How do they get a little bit of Rosenkrantz Africa in their jewelry collection?
So it's very easy to get in touch with us. We are always more than happy to answer questions and communicate with clients around the world. We already have, we are lucky to have clients around the world who love stones, who love the stories, and who follow our journey. And we are very grateful for that. But we are always here, always ready, super easy to get in touch with us. Send us an email, drop us a message on WhatsApp or on Instagram, and we'll be more than happy to answer questions and to help you create something incredible.
Amazing. And do you have a favorite piece? I know that's like asking people to have a favorite child, and people don't, you're not normally meant to ask that question, but do you have a favorite piece when you think about your journey so far? And either of you, both of you can answer.
I definitely have a favorite piece. I think the Andromeda earrings are my favorite piece, for sure.
Do we have those on the slide?
Yeah, we definitely have those on the slide.
Please, let's see those.
Let me show you.
Let's see them.
Here we go.
Those, those are my favorites.
These are made with Tanzanite from our family's mine in Tanzania.
So my brother-in-law, to be specific, has a mine in Arusha. The mine's Tanzanite.
Absolutely exquisite. And I love the ear climber element of the diamond and the fact that you can wear them with the Tanzanite pendant or without, which again, it's, you know, a really, I mean, that blue is so intense, really exquisite. And Iver, do you have a favorite?
I would probably say the Rosenkrantz Emerald, which I'm happy to show you again. This beautiful piece, it's, I think it really, you know, when we started creating high jewelry, we didn't dream of, or we actually dreamt of, but that's about as far as we could take it. But to create pieces on this level, to work with stones so rare that it's something you only see once in a lifetime, that is really what it's all about for us.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you both so much. You have been so generous. I think you've opened people's eyes and perspectives to high and fine jewelry from Africa. I think you've also opened people's eyes and perspectives to the many visual and environmental and architectural motifs that can sag into one's story, and how heritage, tradition, and culture just sag into unforgettable pieces. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to interview the two of you.
Thank you so much, Mazzi.
Thank you for having us, Mazzi.
We really hope that we contribute to changing people's view on Africa, and that there's a new brave world out there, and we can all be part of it. I mean, it's a global world where, you know, to be honest, I feel like more than a citizen of the world than a Danish person. Things are getting blurry with lines and definitions, and I think we all have to embrace that and spread love. Let's do good things and help people in as far as we can and make beautiful things.
Completely concur. I think that's our mic drop.